I don't understand what the fuck's going on. I don't understand what the hell is happening here with all these plane crashes. People are quick to say it's Boeing's fault, but we shall see. Only time will tell.
Plane crash in South Korea, one of the worst aviation disasters in that country's history.
Here's what we know. The passenger jet operated by Jeju Air, the country's largest low-cost airline, seen in flames after skidding off a runway and crashing into a concrete wall. Look at that smoke.
Just so tragic. Nearly everyone on board losing their lives.
There's a couple things I don't understand about this. One, pilots, when they do a crash landing, they're supposed to dump the fuel, right? I don't know if they did that because the plane did erupt in flames, but maybe that's because of the impact. No. I thought that usually at the end of that runway in most airports, there's a concrete slab. They often have a dirt pile so that on impact, it doesn't do exactly what you just saw. Like, I thought that it's supposed to be a mound of dirt, basically. When it's a mound of dirt, and plane does a crash landing like this, or there's like any sort of issue where it needs to have a hard impact landing, it doesn't fucking explode. So those are some of the things that I don't understand in terms of like limited knowledge of how airplanes work. But having said that, it did come in pretty fast. Also add like the just like foam or whatever. I think it's like I forget what it's called. But there's some kind of they're like an anti-flammable they're supposed to spray in a situation like that as well. But that sometimes has the capacity to like impact even make the crash landing go even faster rather than the friction that you get. Flame retardant, but the foam makes it slipperier, so there's not enough friction, and then therefore you end up crashing even faster. So I guess that's the reason why they didn't do that. The Kazakhstan crash, they dumped as much fuel as they could, but they didn't have enough time to get it all out, and they had to try to land. Yeah. Ultimately, yeah, been 4 aviation-related incidents in 1 week. It's getting pretty crazy out here, but I don't know what the actual reason for this is.
Many questions this morning. Why did the plane land on its belly, and why wasn't it slowing down? Transportation officials saying that the pilot sent out a distress signal shortly before that crash. Now, we've got to warn you here. Some of the video you're about to watch is very difficult to see. Overnight, a terrifying passenger plane crash killing nearly 200 people in South Korea in one of the nation's worst air disasters. The Jeju Air Boeing 737 carrying 181 passengers and crew exploding into flames when it slammed into a wall after something went terribly wrong while landing.
No one tell Cutie. Cat, I think she's going to hear about this. It's a pretty big story, especially where there's like a lot. I mean, travel is still incredibly safe, regardless of the many incidents that have taken place. It's thousands of commercial airliners flying all around the globe, and of that is still... but regardless, obviously, when you see something like this, it's hard to contend with that because you're so powerless. You're usually powerless in most instances, but I understand why people have this fear of that plane.
Muan International Airport. Smoke billowing into the air, cameras capturing these images near the crash site. At least 177 people killed in the disaster, and that number is expected to rise, with officials saying nearly everyone on board is presumed dead. The families of the passengers on board gathering in an airport lounge distraught as fire officials read the names of the victims. Jeju Air's CEO expressing his deepest apology and accepting responsibility for the crash as the company's top executive. In the video, you can see that the 15-year-old jet landed without its landing gear deployed. The plane landing on its belly at a very high...
Like that I don't understand. It's a very long runway from what people are saying in the chat. And I'm surprised that there's like a call at the end of it.
Speed, then veering off the runway before slamming head-on into that concrete wall. The plane then bursting into flames, thick black smoke billowing into the air, debris scattered all over the ground. In the wreckage, only the plane's tail still recognizable. Local transportation officials saying before landing, the control tower issued a warning of a bird strike, and the pilot sent a distress signal immediately afterwards. Just a minute later, they say, the pilot issued a mayday and tried landing the plane.
It wasn't a wall, it's a guidance system. Yeah, it looked there were antennas on top of the wall, so I don't know.
Emergency crews rescuing 2 crew members. In a statement, Boeing saying, "We extend our deepest condolences to the families who lost loved ones, and our thoughts remain with the passengers and crew." And there is still a lot that we don't know here, but we did learn that this particular plane had diverted to Seoul yesterday while on the way to Beijing, but it's unclear why it diverted. We also know that Jeju Air has a very strong safety record as a South Korean low-cost.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like there's like the South Korea, but like they have a pretty fucking solid safety record. Like they have a pretty solid track record.
Carrier. There was just one other incident almost 2 decades ago when a plane overshot a runway. Only 6 people had minor injuries then. Joining us now is ABC News contributor and aviation analyst John Nance. John, thank you so much for being here this morning for this very disturbing story. Based on what we've seen so far, what do you think happened?
We've got a mystery here, Gio. There's no question about it. You don't land with your landing gear up if you have time to put it down. There's an alternate method, even if you've lost all hydraulics. So why did they land with the gear up? Was it a situation where they had another emergency that we don't understand yet in the cockpit, or was there something else, including just forgetting to put it down in the middle of an emergency?
John, another thing that we notice here in this video is that the plane just isn't slowing down, even when it's landing on its belly. Some airports have those crush pads at the end of runways to slow them down. Is that something investigators are going to look at here?
They will look at it, and they'll look at the application of that worldwide, for that matter. But the problem is, with a crush pad, you still got to be aligned with the runway. If they veered off, which appears to be the case, they would not necessarily have gone into a crush pad if there'd been one at the end of the runway.
And John, something else that we've seen in this video, the plane hit that wall, and that's that very disturbing moment that we see that was captured there. It's very possible that the plane would have been fine if it hadn't hit that wall. Why is that wall even there?
That's a good question. I don't know why it's there, and I don't know where it is in regard to the center line of the runway. You don't want anything in the way of the aircraft as you're coming down a runway. And if you're landing gear up, there's no choice as pilots in terms of how long it's going to take, how much extra time if you're skidding. Now, of course, you also don't have any directional control at that point after you've dropped the speed maybe under 100 knots. So a lot of questions here, and some of them are extremely serious in terms of future.
And we know that Boeing is actually sending investigators there, of course, because this is one of their planes. When you look at this and you look at Boeing and people look at other Boeing incidents earlier this.
Whenever this happens, immediately, because there's so many moving parts, because there's so much division amongst like different parts, starts pointing the finger of blame at other places. Immediately, Boeing will say, "Oh, it's pilot error." Pilots will say, or it's Boeing's issue. We don't know. We have no idea. There will be an investigation, obviously, and it's not even a Boeing we investigated ourselves and we found ourselves not guilty type situation at all. I don't think it like that at all. It's there are to be government investigations. Usually this is one of the things that like the entire would collapse if there was an air of. Like if people thought this was commercial air traffic was unsafe, then the entire industry would fall apart. Do you understand? Which is precisely the reason why, in order for this industry to continue operating, they have to be as careful as possible. Now, obviously, having said that, capitalism does have a tendency to cut corners, and we've certainly seen that with many of the Boeing-related incidents. There's also the other side of things. I'm not speaking for Korea when I say this, but specifically in America, there have been many initiatives from for-profit commercial air travel companies that want to limit the number of people that, like limit the pilots, for example, to reduce the number of pilots from 2 to 1 pilot specifically, which is devastating and very scary. You have to have a million redundancies in order to make sure that this process is as safe as possible. It's something that the unions have been able to push back on. So it's yet another instance where labor power is incredibly important in protecting people. You just have to, never overlook the interest of profiteers in cutting corners, even if it's at the cost of human lives and the cost of safety and then the cost of like long-term costs too. Because like I said, if people are fearful of flying because these incidents keep happening over and over again, you're not going to have as many people willing to travel. Once there is broken and people like masses get a flight, these industries will fall apart.
Year. Is this something that you're going to be saying, well, wait a minute, maybe there's a problem with this particular jet, or no, because it's a 15-year-old jet?
Well, first of all, the 737 is probably the most ubiquitous aircraft out there, along with the Airbus A320. I don't think there's anything that's indicated so far that might be a generic problem with the airplane. Very simple systems. But the thing is, we know exactly what happened in those last few minutes. We really won't know the application. But I would be very surprised if there was anything that was a particular model aircraft.
All right, aviation analyst and former pilot John Nance, thank you so much for joining us here on GMA, as always. Thank you. Janae?
And Gio, the questions that you were asking, John said good questions, but all questions that we're all wondering.
Local fire officials and aviation experts say some sort of landing gear malfunction was likely. There's also speculation from officials that this may have been caused by a bird strike. The pilot also made a Mayday call shortly after the control tower warned about birds in the area. According to FlightAware, the Jeju airliner was listed as a Boeing 737 traveling from Bangkok, Thailand, before it crash landed at the Muan airport in South Korea. That's in the southwest part of the country. This is the country's worst air disaster in decades. CNN's Mike Valerio has been following this breaking news story from Seoul. Mike, update us on where things stand now.
Well, I would say that probably the most dramatic element, Amra, under the floodlights that are illuminating the crash site here is...
No, 15 years old is not old for an airplane at all. Number one. Number two, those things get fucking updated pretty frequently. And not only that, but the reason why you hear Boeing a lot more is because, I mean, there's virtually two major Boeing. And Boeing has a lot of fleets all around the globe. So you're going to have a lot more from Boeing, and that they're whenever these things happen, there's a lot of media attention surrounding it because it's a 200 people just dying with one crash. So just those are some of the reasons why people pay close attention to it, and you hear names being thrown around like this.
Just the urgent effort to try to find...
Also, Boeing is obviously a corner cutter, pretty aggressive corner cutter as well in their newer fleets too. And there have been many instances, many high-profile instances where is directly the fault of the company and their cost-cutting initiatives. But the initial suspicion is a bird strike, but video allegedly showing the moment of the bird strike, one of the two survivors told the doctors he had already been rescued when he woke in the hospital. But like, even if one bird is taking out one of the engines, I mean, there's still here as to like why the fucking landing gear did it, because it's not supposed to affect the landing gear. And again, they have a million redundancies for stuff like this. Okay, like bird strikes happen, they fly around. You know what I mean? It's not supposed to impact the flaps. It's not supposed to impact the landing gear. There's also a second engine. Like planes are incredibly as far as different redundancies built in process, like and what pilots are on. They're basically, Austin is saying on Discord, oh hell yeah, Austin is around. Okay, great. I think it's important to hear from an aviation safety expert here like this. So I will be calling him right now. Okay. Hello.
Hear me?
Wait, where are you?
Oh shit, why is my camera on?
Wait, turn it on.
I'm at my car first. Let me get my car.
Okay, get in your car and put it on and
Okay.
turn your camera on.
Okay, hold on. Just a second.
Number one PR person? No, neither myself nor Austin are going to defend Boeing unless it's something that is defensible. But I think
Boeing here. Nobody's defending Boeing. Let's see. Oh shit.
okay. Hello. All right.
Hold on. Let me.
Wow, you got the M-Power right there. Okay, I lost you, by the way.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, hold on. Let me transfer.
Boom.
Boom. Well, I'm from satellite phone. Here at the scene of the crash, I flew out immediately when I saw it.
Okay. Let's not, dude. 200 people died. Let's make
I'm just
let's
kidding.
not.
No, look, the first plane crash was. Have you cursed one in Russia?
Yeah, I mean that one is a
Was
work
shot
of
down.
work of anti-air. That was a surface-to-air missile.
Right. So the second one was a Boeing 737 in South Korea that had some sort of failure, hydraulic failure. This is also the record, is what I think happened. Had some sort of hydraulic failure that led to loss of the ability to put on the landing gear, which led pilots having to do a belly landing. Now, obviously, a hydraulic failure is not unique to Boeing thing. A hydraulic failure could happen in any aircraft. I'm not trying to defend Boeing. I'm just saying the obvious. So because I don't think it's productive to oh my God, you should be terrified to fly. Because this is what happens with these disasters.
Yeah.
Is, think people, you shouldn't be, it's still very safe. Hearing about it on the news because it is so rare. Being said, there was a hydraulic. I think there was some sort of hydraulic failure that led to the landing gear not being able to come down, which led to the pilots having to do a belly landing. Now, if you see, I don't know if you've seen the video, but if you see in the video, there was the flaps were up, which meant they weren't retracted. Usually on a landing, you have your flaps down. The pilots either made the decision to have the flaps up, or that was a failure because you need hydraulics to bring the flaps down. And if they're the same system that's tied to the landing gear, I'm not sure how that actually works. But if that system was affected, then they wouldn't be able to bring down the flaps. The other thing I was thinking about is if maybe.
But there's a backup. There's always a backup.
Yeah, there's always redundancies, but it was also fail. So I don't know. Imagine the redundancies also failed, which is why the landing gear wasn't able to come down, nor were the flaps.
There's someone in the chat that's saying the landing gear can deploy via gravity, which I'm pretty sure that's the case, and they also deploy it early enough that they can go and try a second approach, which they didn't.
Yeah, so that's the other two. I don't want to obviously rest in peace to. I think it's probably perished in this if they were at the brunt of the impact.
Yeah.
I don't want to, or lack thereof or whatever, but I do think based on the photo or the video that I saw, and I don't know if was it their first or second attempt.
I don't know if they did two attempts. Did they do
so
two?
The
chat is saying this is their second landing attempt. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and working engines on the second attempt. Because I heard from somebody that it was a single engine. Regardless, they were capable of going around. And on the second attempt, I don't know if you saw this, but if you're coming in, so if you're flying in, what we'd be trying to do is get the aircraft at as low of a speed as possible when they touch the ground. And you can kind of see that as they're coming in. So what they're going to do that is they're going to lift the nose up and almost get the aircraft to a point where it's basically stalling. So it's essentially at a very, very low airspeed, and you're just touching the ground. The plane is of any lift whatsoever. But what ended up happening is it backfired, and they drifted too far down the runway. So when they actually touched down, they only had half of the runway left. And I believe this was a 9,000-foot runway, which is a relatively short runway. I mean, it's not the shortest between a 10,000 and 12,000-foot runway. Burbank has a 6,000-foot runway. So it's not exactly the Burbank, California, that is. So it's not the shortest runway in the world. But still, you use up about half it. Maybe let's say there's 4,500 feet left. You don't give yourself that much of a chance to stop, especially when you don't have flaps and you don't have there's no you have no brakes. So I think that in probably an error, they probably should have tried to go around again. But again, I don't know how much fuel they had on board. I don't know if both ends were working. There's a lot of things we don't know, so it's easy to sit here and say, okay, they should have gone around when they were also having a fuel emergency. Somebody mentioned, what's the airline called? Jeju or something?
Jeju, yeah.
Yeah, Jeju's from what I understand, is a low-cost carrier, and a lot of low-cost carriers encourage their captains to take minimum fuel. And so they may have had a fuel emergency. So there's a lot of things that we don't know, but based on what we see, I think confident in it's probably some sort of hydraulic failure. And pilots definitely overshot the spot of the runway and we should have come down in. So that's what I would say based on just what I would say. The other thing is, I really don't think this needs to, again, and this is not in defense of Boeing, okay? Because I have no horse in the race when it comes to Boeing, but this shouldn't make you fearful of flying. This shouldn't be a conversation about you shouldn't feel safe to get on an aircraft.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to encourage. What the media is going to do is you're going to see every aviation related incident is now going to be reported.
Yeah.
So from engine failures to strikes to things that may happen more frequently than you know will be big media stories. It's because there can clicks in the feet you have of flying. So that's what I would say about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So overall, what's your speculation on the matter? What do you think is scenario? Bird strike an engine, and then they just maybe failed to deploy the landing annually?
Well, so this is like this. I saw the bird strike. So is a bird strike a factor in this? Because I saw a video of a bird strike.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're working with one engine, and so you can still ground with one engine. You can still fly on one engine. It just makes it harder. I mean, I don't know if you I flew. So Hassan, the 737-800 is the plane that you and I flew in, the simulator.
Yeah, that
is the plane that we flew. And we were able to do single engine. So it is possible. And you were also able to hydraulics, but I don't know what degree. It's really hard to speculate because we don't know to what degree failure impacted the systems of the aircraft. So in my heart of hearts, I want to assume that the pilots did everything that they could, and they're experts. And I mean, they had thousands of flying hours, so imagine they did everything they possibly could. But I would speculate that, the reason for the overshoot was the fact that they sort of glided it, down half of the run, ended up, not going around, but they've been capable to go around. So it's hard to sit here and be like, they should have gone around. They may not have had enough fuel, or something like that, because it's pretty obvious to go around at that point. You're halfway down the runway. You know what I mean? And
why do you think there was a giant concrete wall at the end of that runway? I don't know if because it was doing a landing that maybe it just went out of control and off the runway. But I thought that normally it's supposed to have like a dirt mound at the end of that runway, so that what we saw with that initial explosion is not supposed to happen. Boeing plane that does it have the capability of dumping fuel? And is there a reason as to why they didn't? And also, last but not least, the question I have is was the fact that the plane in flames, is that just simply because of the remaining fuel, or does that happen even if fuel in the plane is what I mean?
I mean, I think it happens regardless. I think if it's not that even if the plane doesn't have any fuel, I think it's going to explode. There's a lot of other things that could blow up. I have no idea. Honestly, that's outside of my realm of expertise. Let me start with your question about the wall, the wall. I imagine depends on the airfield. Like for example, it's the Pacific Ocean, and there is a perimeter wall around LAX for security and things like that. It just depends. It just depends on the airports around. You have probably dirt mounds. Like if you're looking at an airport like Denver's out in the middle of nowhere. You just don't, I'm sure there's not as much of a requirement for some sort of perimeter wall.
There's a Boeing 737 pilot in the chat says you can deploy flaps with an electric motor as backup, and the gear hydraulic system A is not connected to the flaps. Hydraulic system B, and no, they can't dump fuel on the B 737.
You can't dump fuel on the 737? Huh.
That's what he's saying.
News to me. I guess he's a pilot, so I obviously don't know. I guess you can't, but you can burn fuel off.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, no, they do not. It says that Boeing 737 all models, the DC-9, MD-80, Boeing 717, and the A320 family, and various regional jet aircraft do not have fuel dump systems installed.
So
I wonder if that's a cost-cutting. That's a cost-cutting measure.
I don't know. In the U.S., though, I've heard of things that occur, and you need to have an emergency landing, and a lot of these planes will fly in circles for hours. I don't know if you guys remember mid 2000s, there was a jet flight that had a gear that came down, and it was front landing gear was twisted. It was like a huge like live. It was broadcasted live, and I think for a long time to burn all the excess fuel. So I think typically instead of if you can't, this is what they would do. But I think the problem is they may have been on one engine. So I don't know what the procedures of the given airline would be, but like if you're having one engine, you got to land as quick as possible. I don't know. Maybe that's the procedure. Hey, Hassan, I got to turn my camera off and I just got to go to audio.
Okay.
I got to 1 second.
You got to start driving. No, it's good. I mean, we don't have to take more of your time. I'm going to go back to the CNN experts. If you hear something that I'm talking about that you have input in, you can hit me back.
But one thing I can say, a Boeing pilot should back me up on this. Don't fall for this is some sort of, I'm not a Boeing, look, I'm a pocket of big Boeing, okay? But I just am so annoyed. It's not about defending Boeing. It's the fact that it's not a facts. The Boeing 737 has been in service for like over 30 years in different variations.
Yeah.
So like the MAX plane was a new variation, had a lot of problems, and Boeing should have to pay for those issues. But like the Boeing 737 as a plane has been a very like try and true safe plane over many generations. So like I don't think there's reason to like not get on a Boeing plane. There's a lot of other factors at play here. Anyway, that's all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Austin Show, a resident pilot slash
not
aviation.
in the pocket of Boeing. I actually prefer to fly Airbus. Like actually
resident Boeing defender in the pocket of Big Boeing.
The pocket of Big Boeing, I promise.
Thank you, Austin. Right. Your Boeing check is in the mail. All right, bye. Okay. That was Austin Show. Like I said, commercial airline pilot, aviation expert. Okay, he has logged flight hours, like FAA hours. He is not an actor, though.